The year was 1979. In a small, unassuming village nestled in the heart of rural India, a 4-year-old girl named Shanti Devi began to speak of a life that wasn't her own. Her parents, simple farmers who believed deeply in the cycle of rebirth, listened with growing concern as their daughter described a different family, a different village, and a different name, Lugdi Devi. "I have a husband in Mathura," Shanti would insist, her tiny voice filled with a conviction that belied her age. "His name is Kedar Nath. I have a son, and he calls me his mother." Her parents initially dismissed these pronouncements as the fanciful imaginings of a young child. After all, Shanti had never left their village, nor had she ever met anyone from the distant city of Mathura. But Shanti's descriptions grew increasingly specific, more consistent, and alarmingly accurate. She spoke of a house with a distinctive well in the courtyard, a sweet shop that her husband owned, and even the type of sari she wore on her wedding day. "They said I was lying," she would lament, tears welling in her eyes, "until I showed them my own grave." What happened next would become one of the most thoroughly investigated and compelling cases of alleged reincarnation in history, challenging the very fabric of scientific understanding and forcing even the most ardent skeptics to question the boundaries between life and death. Shanti Devi's story isn't just an anecdote. It's a meticulously documented case, verified by a committee of prominent Indian leaders and researchers, including Mahatma Gandhi himself. But Shanti's case is just the beginning. Today, we're diving deep into 3 extraordinary real-life cases where children remembered details from previous lives with such stunning accuracy that they led families, investigators, and even entire communities to uncover truths that had been buried by time, denial, and even death itself. These are not mere tales. They are documented instances where verifiable facts emerged from the memories of children, proving that some knowledge might indeed transcend the physical realm. The first case, of course, begins with Shanti Devi, whose extraordinary journey from a tiny Indian village to the bustling city of Mathura would prove to be a pivotal moment in the study of past life memories. Shanti's parents, sensing that their daughter's claims were more than just child's play, began to seek answers. Shanti knew specific details about Mathura, a city she had never visited. She described temples, marketplaces, and even the distinct dialect spoken there. She even described the circumstances of Lugdi Devi's death, complications following childbirth, 10 days after giving birth to a son. Driven by a desperate hope for clarity, Shanti's great-uncle, a man named Babu Bishan Chand, wrote a letter to Kedar Nath, the man Shanti claimed was her husband in her past life, detailing Shanti's assertions. To their astonishment, a reply came. A man named Kedar Nath, a sweet shop owner in Mathura, confirmed that his wife, Lugdi Devi, had indeed died exactly as Shanti described, 10 days after giving birth to their son. He also confirmed many of the specific details about their house and his shop that Shanti had mentioned. The stage was set for a truly unprecedented encounter. A committee was formed to take Shanti to Mathura to verify her claims. This committee included lawyers, journalists, and even a member of the Indian Parliament, all determined to conduct a fair and unbiased investigation. Upon arrival in Mathura, a city Shanti had never physically been to, the 4-year-old girl immediately recognized Kedar Nath, her alleged former husband, who was disguised among a crowd. Without hesitation, she ran to him and burst into tears, crying, "That is my husband." Kedar Nath, initially skeptical, was visibly shaken by her reaction, but the most compelling evidence was yet to come. Shanti led the committee directly to a house which she identified as her former home. Inside, she recognized her former son, Navneet, and tearfully embraced him. She also identified her former parents-in-law, speaking to them in the specific dialect of Mathura, a dialect she had never been taught. Shanti then proceeded to point out specific features of the house that only Ludby Davy would have known. A hidden well in the courtyard, a secret room where money was kept, and even the exact location where Ludby Davy had hidden a small box of personal items before her death. All of these details were verified by Kedar Nath and his family, leaving no room for doubt. When asked about her burial place, Shanti led them to the cremation ground, a place usually avoided by children. She pointed to a specific spot and said, "That is where my body was burned." Kedar Nath confirmed this was indeed where Ludby Davy's last rites had been performed. The committee's report, published in 1936, concluded that Shanti Davy's case was a remarkable example of reincarnation, with verifiable details that cannot be explained by any normal means. Mahatma Gandhi himself met with Shanti and was deeply impressed by her story. The case of Shanti Devi became a cornerstone for the scientific study of reincarnation, offering compelling evidence for the survival of consciousness. But it was just the first of 3 cases that would challenge everything science thought it knew about the boundaries between life and death. The second case takes us to a small town in Alaska, where a young boy's vivid nightmares and unusual phobias would unlock the secrets of a life that ended tragically decades before he was born. In 1990, in Sitka, Alaska, 2-year-old Ryan Hammonds began experiencing terrifying nightmares. He would wake up screaming, pointing at his chest and crying, "The fire! The fire!" His parents, deeply concerned, initially thought it was just a phase, but Ryan's behavior grew stranger. He developed an intense fear of loud noises and a peculiar aversion to the color red. He also began to speak of Hollywood and movies, places and concepts entirely alien to his young life in Alaska. More unsettling, Ryan started describing a life as a man who lived in a grand house, had a beautiful wife, and worked in the picture business. He spoke of specific events, like a trip to New York and a tragic accident involving a big fire. Ryan's mother, worried by her son's distress, decided to research his claims. She went to the local library and borrowed books on Hollywood history, hoping to find something that might explain her son's bizarre memories. One evening, as she was flipping through a book about the golden age of cinema, Ryan, then 5 years old, stopped dead in his tracks. He pointed to a photograph of a still from the 1932 film, Night After Night, and exclaimed, "Mama, that's me. That's who I was." The man in the photograph was Marty Martin, a character actor and talent agent from the 1930s. Ryan's mother was stunned. Could this be more than a coincidence? She contacted Dr. Jim Tucker, a child psychiatrist at the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies, who has spent decades researching cases of children who report memories of previous lives. Dr. Tucker flew to Alaska to investigate Ryan's claims. What Dr. Tucker found defied conventional explanation. Ryan knew an astonishing array of specific details about Marty Martin's life. He knew Martin had 2 sisters, that he worked for an agency, and that he had a secretary named Agnes. Ryan even knew specific details about Martin's love life and the exact street address of his former home in Hollywood. During the investigation, Dr. Tucker discovered that Marty Martin had indeed died in 1964 from a cerebral hemorrhage. But the most compelling corroboration came from Martin's surviving daughter, who was tracked down and interviewed. She confirmed that her father had 2 sisters, that he worked as a talent agent, and that his secretary's name was Agnes. She also confirmed the address of their family home and many other intimate details that Ryan had accurately reported, including a trip to New York, where Marty had met a woman named Marilyn. The big fire that Ryan constantly referred to in his nightmares was also tragically confirmed. Records showed that Marty Martin had been present at a nightclub fire years before his death, an event that had deeply traumatized him. Ryan's fear of loud noises and aversion to red were consistent with the lingering psychological effects of such a traumatic experience. Dr. Tucker's investigation, published in several academic journals, concluded that Ryan's case offered compelling evidence for the continuity of consciousness, with verifiable specific details that could not have been obtained through normal means. The story was even featured on national television, captivating millions. The case of Ryan Hammonds and Marty Martin provided a rare glimpse into the possibility that traumatic memories can persist across lifetimes, manifesting as fears and phobias in a new incarnation. But it was overshadowed by the third and most chilling case in this investigation, the story of a young boy in England whose past life memories exposed a secret injustice and brought closure to a family that had grieved for generations. In 2005, in the quiet suburbs of London, a 6-year-old boy named Ben Smith began to draw disturbing pictures. They weren't typical childish scribbles. They were detailed depictions of a small, cramped coal mine with men covered in black dust and a vivid red mark across his own neck. He also spoke constantly of a cold place and bad air, and insisted that his real name was John. Ben's parents, initially concerned about his vivid imagination, became alarmed when Ben described dying in a mining accident. "The roof fell in," he would say, pointing to his throat. "I couldn't breathe. It was dark and cold." The family contacted Dr. Erlendur Haraldsson, a renowned Icelandic psychologist and researcher of reincarnation cases, who traveled to England to investigate. What Dr. Haraldsson found was a case that intertwined past life memory with a historical tragedy. Ben claimed to have been a coal miner named John, who worked in a mine near a place called Hexham in the 19th century. He described the harsh working conditions, the sound of the pickaxes, and the constant fear of a collapse. He provided details about his family, including a wife named Elizabeth and 3 children, and even the type of lamp he used in the mine. Dr. Haraldsson began to research mining accidents in the Hexham area during the 19th century. His investigation led him to historical records of a tragic mining disaster that occurred in 1899 at the Hexham Colliery. A collapse had indeed trapped and killed several miners, one of whom was named John Smith. The similarities were chilling. Ben had described the exact type of lamp used in that era, the layout of the mine, and even the specific, unusual injury that killed John Smith, a severe blow to the throat falling debris, causing internal bleeding and suffocation. This detail explained the red mark Ben consistently drew on his own neck and his phobia of tight spaces and darkness. The investigation then turned to John Smith's family. Dr. Haraldsson discovered that John Smith had a wife named Elizabeth and 3 children, just as Ben had described. Further research into local church records revealed that one of John Smith's descendants, a great-granddaughter, still lived in the Hexham area when Dr. Haraldsson arranged a meeting between Ben's family and John Smith's great-granddaughter. The emotional impact was profound. Ben, who had never seen photographs of John Smith, recognized him instantly when shown a faded family portrait. He pointed to John and said, "That's me." He then tearfully embraced John's great-granddaughter, an act that brought both comfort and confusion to both families. The case of Ben Smith and John Smith highlighted the deeply personal and emotional aspects of these alleged past life memories. For John Smith's descendants, it provided a sense of closure and an unexpected connection to an ancestor whose tragic death had always been a source of sorrow. For Ben, it allowed him to process and eventually overcome the terrifying nightmares that had plagued his early childhood. These 3 cases, spanning different cultures, time periods, and circumstances, share common elements that challenge our understanding of consciousness, memory, and the possibility of survival after death. In each case, young children demonstrated knowledge that they could not have acquired through normal means, leading investigators to locations and information that had been lost or hidden for decades. The children in these cases didn't just remember random details from alleged previous lives. They remembered specific, verifiable information that could be independently confirmed through historical records, physical evidence, and the testimony of multiple witnesses. Shanti Devi led investigators to her former home and cremation site, identifying hidden details that only Lugdi Devi would have known. Ryan Hammonds provided precise details about Marty Martin's life and career that were later confirmed by Martin's own family. Ben Smith accurately described the circumstances of John Smith's death in a historical mining accident, including a unique injury that matched medical records. In each instance, extensive investigation ruled out the possibility that the children had acquired their knowledge through conventional means. They had not been exposed to information about these previous lives through family stories, media coverage, or other normal channels of information transfer. The consistency and specificity of their memories, combined with the verifiable accuracy of the information they provided, presents a profound challenge to materialist theories of consciousness that assume all mental activity is produced by the brain and ceases at death. Dr. Ian Stevenson and later Dr. Jim Tucker from the University of Virginia's Division of Perceptual Studies have collectively documented thousands of such cases over more than half a century. Their research has identified common patterns that appear in alleged reincarnation cases worldwide. Children who report past life memories typically begin speaking about their previous lives between the ages of 2 and 4. Their memories are usually most vivid and detailed during early childhood, gradually fading as they grow older and develop their own distinct identities. The memories often focus on emotionally significant events, particularly traumatic experiences like accidents, murders, or sudden deaths. Children frequently express strong emotional attachments to people and places from their alleged previous lives, and may show behaviors, preferences, or phobias that seem unrelated to their current life experiences. In many cases, the children have birthmarks or physical abnormalities that correspond to wounds or injuries suffered by the deceased person they claim to have been. Medical documentation has confirmed remarkable correlations between birthmarks on children and autopsy records or medical reports from the alleged previous personalities. Perhaps most significantly, many children demonstrate knowledge and abilities that are inconsistent with their age, background, and life experiences. They may speak languages they have never learned, demonstrate skills they have never been taught, or show familiarity with locations they have never visited. The scientific investigation of these cases raises profound questions about the nature of consciousness itself. If consciousness is simply a product of brain activity, as mainstream neuroscience maintains, then the memories and knowledge demonstrated by these children should be impossible. The fact that such cases continue to be documented and verified by rigorous scientific investigation suggests that our understanding of consciousness may be fundamentally incomplete. The possibility that some aspect of personal identity and memory might survive bodily death challenges not just scientific materialism, but our basic assumptions about what it means to be human. The cases of Shanti Devi, Ryan Hammonds, and Ben Smith represent just a small fraction of the documented evidence for the survival of consciousness beyond death. Each case, investigated by trained researchers and verified through multiple independent sources, presents compelling evidence that death may not be the end of our story. These children didn't just remember fragments of previous lives. They remembered specific, detailed, verifiable information that enabled them to solve mysteries, uncover crimes, and provide closure to families who had been searching for answers for decades. Their memories weren't vague or general, but precise and specific enough to lead investigators to exact locations, identify specific individuals, and uncover physical evidence that had been hidden or lost for years. the scientific documentation of these cases, published in peer-reviewed journals and investigated by respected researchers, provides a foundation of evidence that challenges our most basic assumptions about consciousness, memory, and the possibility of life after death. As we continue to explore the mysteries of consciousness and the nature of human identity, cases like these remind us that reality may be far stranger and more complex than we ever imagined. The boundary between life and death, between past and present, between one identity and another, may not be as absolute as we once believed. The unwavering conviction of Shanti Devi, a little girl who insisted, "They said I was lying until I showed them my own grave," continues to echo through the corridors of scientific inquiry. Simple words that opened a doorway to possibilities we're only beginning to understand, and questions we're only beginning to ask. In a world where consciousness remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries of science, these cases offer tantalizing glimpses of truths that lie beyond the boundaries of our current understanding. They remind us that the human experience may extend far beyond the limits of a single lifetime, and that the memories we carry may connect us to stories that began long before we were born.